And just for I'm going to record it on my computer so that way I know I have it.
Good.
Thanks for the tip. All right, guys, I'm going to start letting everybody in.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yay, Sarah. Hi, Lynette. Cool,
All
David.
right. I
Hi,
see
David.
I see Tara coming in now as well, so that's good. I assume that's our Tara. Is that Tara Dower?
Hey,
Hey, it
sorry, I had to find
is.
somewhere to a quiet place. I'm at my friend's house right now. I had to find a quiet place to take this call.
You're lying on your side too, from our point of view.
Oh, here we go. There we go.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, hey, we've got a few people in here with us, which is great. We are going to, this is being recorded, and this will also go up on the Hard Rock YouTube channel. So those that could not make it tonight live will have the opportunity to watch it later so that they can learn from our panel. I'm going to go ahead and start off. I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris Twiggs, co-host of the Hard Talk podcast, Hard Rock board member, and 17-time Hard Rock finisher. And I am delighted to be joined by some Hard Rock veterans to talk about. Just in, hold on. Hi, Dale Garland. We're in the middle of a Hard Rock veteran Zoom, so I can't talk right now. We got it. Thank you, sir. Bye. It's all good. Bye. Dale says hi, everybody. They
Yeah.
say hi back. Aloha. Yes, he is in. Okay, we'll talk later. Bye. He's in. Dale is
Yes.
out. I think diving with whales or something like that in Hawaii right now. He is really enjoying retirement. So
Great.
he has left us in charge today. So I'm gonna go around our panel of experts. I'm gonna ask you each to introduce yourself, tell us about your history with Hard Rock, and then tell us one thing, and only one, because we want to leave something for everybody else. Tell us one thing that is always in your pack, or you think should be in everyone's pack from the beginning at Hard Rock. And Matt, let's start with you.
Yeah, Matt Hagan, only one-time Hard Rock finisher, Cascade Crest board member. I'm trying to echo Chris's intro. Um, uh, and one thing that's always in my pack is two lights from the beginning and spare batteries. They are small, crappy little lights, but they will do in a pinch.
All right, good advice. Tara, how about you?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute it.
Found it.
Yeah, my name is Tara, and I'm also one-time finisher of Hard Rock last year. Incredible experience, very spiritual in a lot of ways. And one thing I keep in my pack, I keep two things, but I'll just say one. But I always keep a lightweight like windbreaker, not so much like a rain jacket, but it's a windbreaker that keeps a lot of heat in. And that's pretty much I keep that in my pack pretty much whenever I'm in the mountains. It keeps the heat in, especially when crazy storms come out of nowhere.
Good advice. Good advice. All right. The Grimeses, tell us who you are, and you can choose. We could keep the one-time finisher thing going if we wanted to keep that trend for a bit.
Keep it going.
Yeah, my name is Billy Grimes, also a one-time finisher. Quite the veterans panel we have tonight. I have a 5-year volunteer, 3-year aid station captain, 4-time crew chief. So I've been around for a little bit and got the opportunity to run it last year. I would say the one thing I keep in my pack is shave cream.
Okay, good. Good, good,
It's clothes,
good.
not butter or something.
Love it.
Whatever works for you.
All right, I'm Amanda Grimes. I am a four-time Hard Rock finisher. And the one thing I keep in my pack at all times, a light pair of gloves.
All right, that is fantastic. So it's interesting this year. We've done these panels now. for a few years. We'll also repeat our veterans panel during Camp Hard Rock when we're all in Silverton, and there'll be an opportunity for last minute questions for people as well. And there'll be another mix of characters. But Dale Garland thought it would be a great idea to have some people that might be a little more relatable to the folks that are going to be asking questions and that are going to be watching and listening. Folks that maybe haven't done it 20 times or 25 times, or people maybe that have more recent experience. And so we put our heads together, and this was a panel that we thought would be compelling and interesting, and nonetheless very knowledgeable about what it takes to get around, because they've all gone around and kissed the rock, and we're super, super excited for the knowledge that all of you have. And all you have to do is kiss that rock one time and you're a hard rocker forever. So it's a fantastic thing. And I can tell you, no matter how many times you do it, I think Amanda would agree, no matter how many times you do it, that first one is absolutely the most special.
Mhm. Okay.
So I'm going to go down our list. We had a number of questions that were asked ahead of time. If there are people that are here with us live and you have questions, please type them into the chat. And after we go through the questions that were submitted ahead of time, we will go to those questions that are put into the chat, because we want to make sure everyone has your question answered, because I know you're all excited and maybe a little bit anxious about your experience and that's forthcoming this summer. So in no particular order, I'm going to go ahead and just look through these questions. I think this actually, I say no particular order, but I think this was the first question somebody asked, so it must have been super important. What is your decision-making process for deciding to seek cover or go for cover when there is lightning? That is a good question. And I don't know for the one-time finishers, I don't know how much lightning y'all experienced. Did you experience lightning at Hard Rock, and did you have to make a decision about any of that?
Not during the race.
I did while pacing. I paced Debbie Kumasaka many years ago, and she had pulmonary edema. And so she was moving exceedingly slow. And we were moving along some broken rock and a snowfield, and we had a lightning storm right above us, a couple thousand feet above us, but she was going super slow. So I would go ahead with my aluminum poles and stick them in the snow. And then I'd take my hat off and say, all right. And I'd stand on the broken rock with my feet together and say, all right, Debbie, tell me if my hair stands up. And it took
God.
3 times before she realized I wasn't kidding. Because I've been in lightning storms and your hair will stand up.
Okay. Did it?
So
Did it?
if you're that close, get down immediately.
Get down immediately. Well, Amanda, have you encountered any of the famed lightning
Yes.
storms?
Yes, every time I've run, I've been in a crazy storm.
Yeah.
I feel like the closest I've ever been to being really scared in a lightning storm at Hard Rock was going up to Kroger's at a Telluride, so going the opposite direction of what we're going to go this year. And I was following Betsy Kalmeyer
hmm
going.
And was that your decision was based on what does Betsy do?
Yeah, what is Betsy Kalmeyer doing? But the hair on my arm was standing up, and yeah, I hurried up and I got to the top and it just went straight over. But
Yeah.
there wasn't really any spots to take shelter where I was at the very top.
I mean, this is what it comes down to, right? I mean, the question is asking,
Right.
what's the decision-making process? And a lot of
Yeah,
times the decision is either I'm down where it's safe, and so I'm just
right,
not going to go up into the storm, or
right.
I'm up where it's dangerous, I'm going to get the heck down.
Mhm.
Um, I've been in a lot of lightning storms out there. 2018, I think, was the worst I've ever seen.
Oh, that was
And
scary.
it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I was above tree line on the last climb of Hard Rock. I was on Little Giant, and my son was pacing me. And but we were so far above tree line that lightning was hitting below us. And so going back down did not seem any safer to us than going up. There was no shelter. And so what I decided to do, what we decided to do was just to keep going to the top to get over and down. It is hard for me to say that was the right. I mean, we lived. Um, it's hard for me still though to say you only know if you made the wrong decision, right? You don't really know if you made the right decision. We got away with it. If I were, and I told people last year going that same direction, if I got into that same situation, I would have turned around and gone down. I would have because it would have been faster to turn around and go down, even though we were close to the top. It still would have been faster to go down to tree line than to go over and then come back down the other side to get to tree line on the other side. But I was probably guided as much by my desire to be done with hard rock as anything. Um,
Yeah, you don't want to add that extrovert.
yeah. So it's a tough question. And I think I was more comfortable this year because I had made that decision ahead of time and I had told my crew, hold me to it. I told my pacers, hold me to it. But I think ultimately you'll get that experience. And for those of you that you haven't been in it yet, out in the San Juans, you do enough hiking out there, you're going to be stuck in a bad one. And but
I
yeah, I
think
would say
I think Betsy Kalmeyer said added some good advice. Just like you're going to be kind of in that go between of potential hypothermia or getting too cold and managing through the lightning storm. So you have to balance those different risks and say, is stopping and sheltering in place going to get me to a point where I'm going to have a hard time warming back up, or
Mhm.
which direction can I move to keep my body moving and stay
Good
as safe
point.
as
Yeah,
possible.
lightning is rarely the only problem you're having. Yeah, good point. Good point. Going to go down to the next question that we received. Foot care. What do you do for your feet, or do you do anything? Somebody in that question, they're asking specifically about Desitin, but I'm wondering what about foot care? Tara, did you have any good, not just at Hard Rock, you've done a lot of ultras. Any
Mhm.
any good foot care advice?
Yeah, I mean, I try to limit changing socks or shoes as much as possible. So when the socks and shoes are going on, I don't want to take them off. So I have to have a method that works for the entire race. I did change my shoes, just my shoes during Hard Rock, once, just because I felt like I could use a little more cushion. Um, I don't know. We were also stopped, so like it was like, okay, let's change the shoes. You have a lot more time at aid stations than like a typical race that I do, where it's just like you're speeding through. So we changed the shoes once, but it wasn't because of any issues. But what I do with my foot care is I typically put on like anti-chafe or like a squirrel's nut butter. I typically do that in between the toes. And then I use Injinji socks over that. And that pretty much works every time. And even then, like I do sometimes get foot pain. Like during Black Canyon, I got foot pain and I felt like blisters were forming. And just knowing that, having faith that you've done enough and your feet are hardened enough that you don't have those blisters and this foot pain is just temporary, because it can hurt really bad. And usually when I take off my socks after a race, I'm expecting my feet to be bloody, my toes to be bloody, toenails to be coming off because of how bad my feet hurt, and they're actually fine. So like also realizing when the shoes come off for me, like my feet kind of swell up, so I know like keeping them on is probably the best thing to do. But just like trusting in your training, how you've prepped your feet beforehand, and then going into the race. And if your feet do hurt, just know like it's probably fine and you can probably get through it, unless I think it was Lin Chin at Western States last year where her entire heel I think came off, and that's a clear indication. It's like, oh yeah, this hurts really bad. um so yeah, I would say like, yeah, it's gonna hurt, and especially during Hard Rock where your feet might get wet, are probably going to get wet because of the water crossings, even if it doesn't rain. And you're going to be on your feet for a really long time. They're probably going to hurt, and just being okay with that pain. And then also prepping them beforehand with training and with that squirrel's nut butter or Injinji socks.
Yep. Good advice. There's no might about your feet getting wet at Hard Rock. They're wet. They're gonna be wet. Matt?
So I'll be the contrarian and say I change my socks all the time. One of the other things in my pack is always a change of socks. And I will find a meadow and I'll just change my socks after I go through a stream or something. It's like a little hug you give yourself when you're out there. I almost never change my shoes, but I change my socks all the time.
There you go.
Also, a pair of socks doubles as an extra pair of gloves.
Especially if they're in Gingies.
Yeah, exactly.
That is great. That is great. Um, let's see. Night or navigating. Oh no, this is that's also I thought it was lighting, but it was lightning. We already talked about lightning. Um, how about Amanda and Billy, tips for staying warm without carrying too much? And Tara, I know you had a good one.
That is not a good one for me because I carry way too much.
Okay. Billy, you
Yeah,
have
I
a
think
comment?
it
He's
depends on the for nighttime. I typically always carry a very light insulated synthetic jacket and an ultralight rain jacket, and I pretty much have an ultra light, the lightest waterproof jacket I can find. I have just a Gore-Tex for me, and I carry that the entire race.
Gotcha.
And especially if you're potentially moving not in the front of the pack, it's just always good to have the peace of mind to have a hard shell
There
with
you
you at
go.
all times.
And a buff is always a great thing.
Yeah.
Tara, what's your tip?
Yeah, I'd agree with that with the ultralight rain jacket. I have it's by oh, it's like a cottage company, but it's like super lightweight, sil poly, and it doesn't weigh that much, maybe like, an amount of ounces, really, really lightweight. But I'm also about like saving money too. Like I'm, big about my shoes. Like I'm gonna spend money on shoes and footwear, but like other things, I'm not big about spending a whole lot of money because I find that there are options. There's good options out there that are budget friendly. And the pants that I bring in my pack all the time, well, doing hard rock or doing anything in the San Juans, are dance pants. And they're by, oh, I forget who they're by, but they're on Amazon and they're just called dance pants. And they're pants that help dancers warm up. And so they're not waterproof, but they keep a lot of heat in even if they're wet. And so a lot of backpackers use them because they're so lightweight. And I think they're like $25 compared to like Enlighten equipment rain pants or like wind pants are like $100. These dance pants are like so cheap, and they're really lightweight as well. So I'm big about saving a buck. Not everyone can spend $100. I know I can't on a pair of uh, wind pants.
I'll
Yeah,
be
wind
darned.
pants are a good thing to always carry with you.
Houdini.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get me some dance pants.
I'm Googling dance
Do they
pants
have
right
glitter?
now.
Do they have glitter and stars?
I always also carry a Mylar blanket because you can throw that around you. Also, if somebody gets injured, I recently broke an ankle, and I'm coming back from a fractured fibula.
Too.
And having a Mylar blanket in my pack was one of the saving graces.
Yeah, I need to not hike with either of you folks because I do not have fractures like that.
Billy was skiing.
Yeah. And thank you, Matt, also for the nightmare fuel that you posted.
Yeah, you want to see my scar?
Before. No, no. The before and after post. Yeah, gee whiz, the X-rays. All right, good dance pants. That is a brand new one. That is one I've never heard. I am going to remember that. Um, someone asks about says for the counterclockwise direction, where along the route would you say phases of extra effort might have the highest return? In other words, are there sections where working a little harder in that section is worth it versus other sections where don't push as hard, the return on investment isn't as good? It's a new question. I've never been asked that question. So you may have to think about it for a second.
Guess if you could run all of Pole Creek,
Okay. You think Pole Creek could be a good
I
in
think
this
Pole Creek would be
direction?
a good one.
Yeah.
It's early, but
It's early,
runnable.
but it's runnable.
Yeah. As long as you can run at 10,000 feet.
Yeah, and as long as you can save some of yourself for the rest of the race.
I mean,
I
it's
think
certainly Campbird Road for sure.
Running up
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, your belly's going to be full, but
Yeah.
you're going to have extra energy after the Urea aid station.
Okay.
Yeah. I think like running downhill pretty quickly, I was doing camper down. So running down that like kind of destroyed my quads a bit. And so like then having to go up again after that, well, running flat for a little bit was like, oh wow, like I feel in my quads. And then I started going up and I was like, wow, yeah, I'm feeling this a lot. I think like not obviously you're going to be going up that, but even if you're going down something early, just make sure you're a little more mindful of like your speed and how much pounding you're doing on that downhill.
Yeah. Yeah. Downhill running is such a technical thing. I mean, on the road, it's not as much technical, but you can beat up your quads if you're not careful. And 100 miles is a long way to go on tired quads.
In
So
the San Juans.
yeah, especially in the San Juan. So yeah, sounds like the best answer to that question is up there in Pole Creek. I can't say I've ever run much, but I've given a good effort there. I always tell myself I'm going to run more. I run some of. I always tell myself I'm going to run more of the road between Sherman and Burroughs, and I very rarely do. But that would be if I were thinking about, I think you could get a good return on investment just by putting in a little extra effort there.
I would agree with that because I took a rest at Burroughs because I was not doing well after Handy's. And that road was a very nice respite from going up and over Handy's and, resting a little bit. And I would agree with that going the direction I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the bottoms between Engineer and the bottom section of Bear Creek, there's some pretty not too steep descents, just kind of very flat-ish areas in there.
Yeah, there are a couple of water crossings there, but you're right. It's good trail in some of that section.
Well, if you don't trip.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, let's see some other good questions here. This is along those same lines. What sections along the route are especially special to you, and what has made them so? Matt, what's a section of the course that is really special to you and why?
Oh, I think I think it was up by Green Mountain that Howie Stern pointed out to me that the columbine flower is edible, and it is tradition that you should eat at least one along the Hard Rock course. They taste like nasturtium. They're kind of spicy, and you can pick up to 20 a day and throw them in your salads, but you can't dig up the roots. So,
Oh, is that the rule? Okay.
yeah, it's
Okay. That is interesting. I don't know if that's Colorado.
that's Colorado state rule.
Yeah, or is that Howie Stern suggested rule?
Howie was the messenger. So take it with a con grano salis.
Okay. Okay. Tara, what's your favorite? Was there a section of the course that particularly spoke to you?
In between Animus and Burroughs, that entire section,
Mhm.
I died and was reborn on that mountain. So very special place. And it was at night, so it was just like so beautiful.
There you go. Amanda, what about you?
The whole course is awesome. Magical.
It is.
I love the top of Green Mountain.
Mhm.
After you go through Cunningham this direction and then you climb up Green Mountain, that's a favorite.
Yep.
Top of Wasatch Basin in itself, the whole thing is just amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's all great. I remember before I ran Hard Rock and I asked a 6-time Hard Rocker what his favorite part of the course was because he hadn't been able to run it in a few years, and he thought for a few minutes and he told me the finish line,
Yes.
the rock.
Yes,
So
this is
I
one of the
also agree
questions.
with him.
Yeah, this is one of the questions we ask on the podcast, and my traditional answer is that rock that you kiss at the end. That's
Yeah,
the best
the
part.
rock.
Billy,
Yeah.
was that the best part for you too?
I love the view. It's going to be behind you, but on Kroger's looking down into Yankee Boy Basin.
Mm.
I think that's one of the most beautiful views on the course. I also love Little Giant and Green Mountain because I'm up there all the time, right outside of Silverton.
I do think though in this direction, and most everyone will be there in the daylight. Um, this direction, in this direction, I think when you crest Grant Swamp Pass and you
Yeah,
see Island Lake,
yeah, for
um,
sure.
this is, I mean, people that know nothing about Hard Rock, people that have never been to the San Juans, they've seen pictures of Island Lake. And when you have gotten to that point of the course and you've climbed up that, you've only got two climbs left after that, and you see that lake. That's a pretty special spot. That's a pretty special spot.
And then you have the joy of wandering through the endless fields of grass around the Putnam Lime Creek Saddle. Uh, I was in the dark and I was like, "Where am I?" When you're out there, set a bearing and then go. And if you don't see anything, it's dead reckoning at sea. You just keep going and going and going on faith that you're going to see a reflector eventually.
Well, that's a very good point, and that leads me to another question that I think is a perfect follow on to that. Someone asks, what sections of the course would you recommend a first time hard rocker pre-run? This person says, I'll be able to do two training runs of around 20 to 25 miles each. And they can be point to point because the person has a driver for drop off and pickup. So, what section would you say you should if you only got 20 miles or 40 miles of the course that you can get on, what are those sections that you think they should see before they line up on race day?
I,
AT is looking at
I would say the first section and the last section, like the maybe the start to Green Mountain, and then you could go from Maggie, you could just run down the road and have somebody pick you up at the end of the
Mhm.
Maggie Gulch Trail. But that would be a good section. And then I also think the maybe from Telluride to the finish, or from even go up to Island Lake and then run back down and run over Putnam to the finish.
Okay. Okay. Good advice. Tara, what do you think?
I think I was very surprised by Grant Swamp. Like I had gone to Ice Lakes, but I didn't, before that, I hadn't gone up to Grant Swamp because I was just like, yeah, it'll be fine. Howie had been telling me all about it. And I was like, yeah, it shouldn't be that bad. I mean, come on, it's not that bad. I did it and I was like, oh my gosh. I kind of wish I had that experience and knew how to get down it efficiently. Of course, I was going like we're going to be going the other direction going up that really steep part. But I think that would be good just trying to get out there, maybe doing like ice lakes and going up that and just like checking out the entire area. It's not hurtful, but I kind of just sent it a little too hard down that and wasn't very smart on my part.
Matt, is there another section that you would recommend?
If you're coming with crew, I didn't have any, but if you're coming with crew, driving out to by Animas Forks, doing an out and back to Handy's is a lot of fun, and it lets your crew see that road beforehand where they're going to be driving. And I was late. I saved myself the last 100 feet of Handy's until I was running the course.
Yeah.
But that's a fun section, and I got a little lost coming back over that because the sun was just setting. So having seen it in the day helped the next day when or a few days later when I ran it.
Well, I will be leading course orientation hikes for the couple of weeks prior to Hard Rock. So I think you should come out and do pretty much the whole course with me and with some of the other folks that are going to be out there doing that. But if you can't, I think all of these sections are great. Any section you don't see will be an interesting surprise for you during Hard Rock. This
I
direction,
think
I
the
think
last
they're
section
fewer, yeah, this direction, I think there are fewer terrifying surprises. Coming the other direction, I was with someone during Hard Rock one year, right where Tara was talking about Grant Swamp Pass, and as we got up above Island Lake, the first timer said something to me about, boy, that was rough, and I asked, have you been over to the other side? The person said no, and I said, well, it's worse. And he said, I can imagine. And I said, no, you can't imagine. Because when you get to the top of that and you have to dive down that for the first time,
I think going up it is so much harder than
going up,
going
it's more work, but going down, it takes more guts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice, everybody. Let's see some other questions here. Does it make, okay, and I think this probably depends on where you're going to be during the course. Does it make sense to run many parts of the course? I think we all run some sections of the course, but does it make sense to run many parts of the course? And I think a corollary to that is there any section that you would say, don't run, don't bother running?
All of it for me.
Don't bother running any of it.
Yeah, I got my money's
You're
worth.
talking about during the race, during the
Yeah,
run.
yeah. I think it's what they
Yeah.
mean.
Talking about during the run.
Is there a section that you would say,
Uh,
this is a section you should definitely run it, or this is a section don't bother running it?
I would say, like, for me, it's always, I mean, this is just my general running or racing strategy is like, if you're feeling good,
Yeah.
then utilize how you feel right now and don't look to the future because you probably won't feel good in the future either way because it's hard rock and it's hard and maybe you'll have stomach issues or you'll be tired. So if you feel good right now, like utilize that. I never thought like there was a section that I was like, oh, I shouldn't have run that. Maybe like slamming downhill after uncampered, but I would still run that, but just a little more gingerly.
I will say the one section that I do not run in this direction, the one section that I will never run in this direction is Bear Creek Ouray, where it's up on the shelf. I'll run down the switchbacks. I'm okay doing that. But when you're on that shelf, the risk reward is just not in the favor of much reward. You're not going to go much faster running that. And if you trip, you're done. And I don't mean you're done with hard rock. I mean you're done as a human being who is alive. So I will not run because I'm always in the dark in that section. I will never run that shelf part of the course. So that's not a definitely run this. That's a definitely I don't run that.
Yeah, fun fact, my first hard rock I got in a few weeks before, I was on the wait list and I went and scouted that section and I actually couldn't do that section. My knees were shaking and I said, no, I think I got to take my name off the list.
Broad daylight too.
I'm so scared of heights.
Yeah. And that was in broad daylight. That wasn't even in the dark.
But then when it came down to it, I did it. But
yeah,
I've
It's
only
better in
actually
the
done
dark.
it during hard rock.
it's better in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So there's some good thoughts on whether to run or not to run certain sections.
Yeah.
Someone asks, since I like hearing stories more than straight info, this person says, I'd like to hear what was your lowest mid hard rock in terms of pain, fatigue, or other pure misery, and how did you troubleshoot to keep going instead of a DNF? Let's hear the horror stories. Matt, what's your horror story?
I rolled into Animus Forks and the bottom of my foot was falling off. And I borrowed a pair of scissors and trimmed it off and took my lucky socks out of my pack and replaced them with the ones in my drop bag. And I was taped things up and I was hurting and I was feeling terrible, but fortunately, Howie Stern wandered in right after me and he looked worse. And I was like, well, if Howie looks bad, I gotta keep going.
That's how you keep going. Just realize Somebody's
Yeah.
always worse off than you are.
And remember that you've waited,
Mhm.
many of you have waited a decade to get there.
Mhm.
And you have the experience that you need to finish this.
Mhm.
And you have the gumption that it takes. Just fix the obvious problems.
Mhm.
And if you're low on calories, grab a bunch of food and start walking, like that Bear Creek trail where you can't run. I just had food in my hand. I just nibbled and ate and then just pulled along.
Mhm.
And I got a bunch of calories in there.
There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tara,
Yeah,
what about you?
I'm gonna scoot after this story, but I think the most important thing I learned during my first and only hard rock, you know, don't load on the calories more than you're comfortable with. Like I heard from my friend Arlen Glick, who had done it the year before. He was like, when you're at an aid station, just eat as much as you can. Like you're lower and you can eat. Personally, that didn't work for me because I had a lot of stomach issues and I got to Handy's, and my pacer Devin and I were walking, hiking up the mountain, and I had been throwing up all day. I couldn't keep anything down, and on Handy's, I just could not stop, and I threw up. I want to say like 7 times, and then at the end of it, I just had like stuff coming out of my mouth, and she was nervous, but she didn't let on in the moment. She was like, "We're gonna get up and over Handy's. We're gonna get to Burroughs. You're gonna rest for an hour. You're gonna eat. You're gonna rest. You're gonna actually sleep, and then we're gonna move on." And it fixed me. I was completely fine after that. I took an hour off my feet. I didn't worry about where I was in the field. I was worried about my health and worried about finishing hard rock because at the end of the day, for me, that's all that mattered. And seeing the entire course and being out there and experiencing the community and the culture. So I sat down, ate, took my time, and then we moved on, and I was completely fine. So yeah, that's my biggest advice. Just take your time if you need to. Those aid stations are great, especially Kroger's. Like if you get up there, eat a pierogi, spend some time in the Sherman bathroom, like just hang out with the people. It's such a fun race. But yeah, I'm gonna log off here. Thank you so much, guys, for having this and putting it on, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in Silverton.
Yeah, see y'all.
So, Billy, Amanda, either of you have any low points ever during Hard Rock?
I got pretty lucky. I was pretty solid, but I think Matt hit the nail on the head. It's like many of us had to wait almost a decade. A lot of people wait longer, and when you wait a decade, or maybe you get lucky and get in on your first try, um, you just know the honor that you have to be at that start line, and that's in and of itself can pull you through the hard times that have the experience with getting into this race to push through.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Amanda, anything to add?
No. I've had hard times for sure. I have hard times every 100-mile race I run.
Sure.
Doesn't everyone? My hard times come the second night. I usually start hallucinating like crazy. And those are my hard times. So I just have to, know what's real and what's not. Usually my hallucinations are great. They're just funny things that happen. So, but they usually kind of slow me down a little bit.
Yep.
So when I did Hard Rock 2 years ago in the same direction that we're doing this year, and I got to the end, and in Silverton there's the Christ of the Mines statue up on the hill. The arms are out like this. I looked up and I thought it was a runner leaning on their poles, and I went up because the markers were down here, and I went up to tell Jesus he was off course, and I fully believed it was a runner.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, those hallucinations, they're funny in retrospect, but they can definitely throw you off. They can
Definitely.
definitely.
But I would say like just keep going until if you thought like, oh, I'm a slower person. You just have to keep going and going and going until if you were to get cut off, you get cut off because
Yep.
you never know. Like you
Yep.
just never know. And you're probably gonna make it, but yeah, you can't let that consume your thoughts. because
I
miles in the St. Juans are so much longer than miles anywhere else. So when somebody's like, "Oh, you have 10 miles to the next aid station," and it takes you like 4.5, 5 hours, versus being like a hour and a half, 2 hours when you're like running your flat stuff somewhere.
Yep.
It's just don't be.
And
Yeah.
just have the conversation with your crew about what it's going to take to really need to drop out. Is it a serious potential injury, or am I just in a terrible mood? You need your crew to back you up when you're in that headspace to make you keep going. So having that conversation with your crew on, what would it take for me to truly need to drop out of this race, and am I just overtired and cranky and hungry, and do I just need to reset?
Yeah. Crew is amazing. And having the right crew in the right attitude makes a big, big difference. It's hard for a first-time hard rocker because your crew has never seen you on that course and it's never seen you under those circumstances. And when you've done hard rock a few times, and if you've got the same crew each time, they can tell, they can sense what's good and what's bad. And I had the pleasure of my daughter kicking me out of an aid station once because she knew if I sat much longer, I would be too comfortable. So I was proud of her for that. I'm gonna call an audible, and I hope he doesn't mind. But 12-time Hard Rock finisher David Koblenz is here, and there's a question, Dave, that I think you might be able to answer because I can't. And maybe you can't either, but I think you might be able to. This person says, I'm hoping to traverse Hard Rock as a fast pack as soon as the snow allows, i.e., as soon as the snow is adequately reduced and not frozen for most of the daytimes. Could you identify some resources for assessing this? For instance, are there specific snow tells or webcams or forums or web pages or offices or humans to call? Um, Dave, do you have any thoughts on that? I know you pay a lot of attention to the weather in the.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no snowtail sites really on the Hard Rock course. There's one near Molass Lake. There's one at Red Mountain Pass, which we use. Silverton in a town has a snow gauge, but there's nothing out there, over by Handy's or. I think one thing you do is realize that most of the course is very similar to a lot of the rest of the San Juans. And so if you could find a snowtail site like Slumgullion, which is over near the Lake City course. It's kind of on the north facing side. It's probably a good average of what the snowpack is going to be on the rest of the course. Or call Jerry Gray in Lake City. He's the RD for San Juan Solstice. He'll give you a quick summary at anytime, day or night. So that would probably be the second best thing to do. Well, no, that's the first best thing to do.
Okay.
And then look up snowtail sites, right? Because he lives there. He knows.
Here you go. Dave, thank you so much. I knew you'd be the right person to ask about
Gary's
that.
going to be getting all the phone calls.
Yeah, yeah. Now here's another question, and I'm afraid that Matt is probably going to be the only one on the panel right now that can answer the question because I don't think the Grimes can answer this very well because the question has to do with how to what kind of strategy do you have for acclimating to altitude? Now, I think the Grimes have got it figured out. Live in Silverton. But beyond that, Matt, what was your altitude acclimation strategy that worked for you, and what do you suggest?
Yeah, so I live about 100 feet above sea level. It was in Seattle, now I'm in Everett. Uh, I took, I found the biggest hill I could, which in my case was Mount Rainier, and I did hill repeats from 5,000 to 10,000 feet, which is as far as you can go on non-glaciated terrain in the Northwest. And I did three of those up to Camp Muir, which I call the Murathon. Um, and and then I got out a week before and I completely dirtbagged it. I slept in my car and I drove and I tried to sleep as high as I could during that week. I drove out Camp Bird Road, drove into a little corner and just slept in the back of the car, climbed up to Virginius and back, went out Animas Forks, slept out there, climbed Handies. Um, and doing those runs the weekend before and the first few days of the week, let me recalibrate my expectations. It's not so much about getting acclimated, it's about recalibrating your expectations for your own ability, because you can do fine at altitude. You just have to slow down a certain amount and be comfortable with that. And then just being conscious of your breathing. I do pressure breathing when I was climbing. You squeeze a little bit. That's a mountaineering trick, and it gives you just a little push, and lets some of us Sealanders survive at altitude.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, my closest mountain to me is Space Mountain in Orlando. And I do as many repeats on that as I can, but it's never really prepared me adequately. Um, but I do cheat, even though I come from Florida. I get out to Ouray typically 6 weeks before Hard Rock, so and then get to play and have fun in the San Juan. So I suggest everybody do that. Go to Silverton, go to Lake City, go to Telluride, go to Ouray. But if you can't spend that much time, and I know a lot of people can't, then maybe what Matt has said will help. Amanda, Billy, you've been around, you've volunteered for a lot of Hard Rocks. Have you seen, and you've seen people come and go? Do you have any suggestions for people? What you think has been successful for people to acclimate?
Getting high as often as possible up on mountains. I know like outside of Leadville, those 14ers usually dry out quicker. You can go there even for a weekend and climb up Mount Elbert a few times, or Massive, or any of those 14ers around there.
Yep.
That's what I did the first couple times.
Yeah, the pressure breathing that Matt mentions a good option,
Yeah.
and just fatiguing yourself if you can't get to mountains, figuring out whether, it's all physiological, and it doesn't necessarily say that there's any connection between how good of shape you are and how you're responding to altitude. So it's kind of a crapshoot, but the more that you can stack, the endurance cards in your favor is going to help you out.
Yep, you're right. I like this question. What do you wish a veteran runner would have emphasized to you before you ran your first Hard Rock? Billy, what is it? You turned to Amanda and you said, "You didn't tell me about that."
Oh no, I told him about it.
So you told about everything. But what do you seriously though? Is there anything? Start with you, Billy. Is there anything that you wish you had been emphasized to you a little bit more before you? I know you were very familiar with the Hard Rock course, but it's different when you're doing the whole thing in one day or two.
Yeah, I think whatever descent that you're going to be doing after midnight is going to be one of the hardest times. And like I came over handies in the middle of the night, and I'd gone over handies multiple times, and I was just and that night even, I just could not believe how difficult the descent was off the summit down to the direction I went down to Burroughs. But just, knowing that you're going to have, even if you've been on the course, like some parts are going to be way harder than you ever thought they were. And just the time you're going to hit points that, maybe shouldn't have been as difficult, that are just going to be as hard as anything else at the time that you think is going to, not be a difficult part of the course, depending on just where you are in your peaks and valleys and the terrain that you're in at that time.
And man, is there anything you can think of that you wish that
I would just say again, like the miles in the San Juans take a lot longer than any other miles.
Yep.
Like you might be doing a 30-minute mile, 20-minute mile.
Yes.
Longer. So don't get discouraged.
Yep.
Yeah, and plan your food accordingly.
Yeah.
A 6-mile section might not be your normal.
Yeah. I would also say gear that we have in our pack at all times living down there is a water filter. It's a water bottle with like a filter on top.
Good tip.
Really,
Yeah. I wish that's maybe one thing that I was thinking. I went back and forth for the first section. Like, I don't think I'll need a filter till Telluride. And you're in the hottest part of the day, and there was water, and there's long stretches. They're taking way longer than a normal mileage stretches, and to have that be free water filter the whole entire race, if I had to do it over again, I would have carried it from the start.
Good.
just to have that peace of mind if it's getting hot that I can drink as much as I want.
Matt, I saw you
Absolutely.
put thumbs up, and I know when you did Hard Rock, it was possibly the hottest year ever.
It
Um,
was toasty, and yeah, one bottle for electrolyte, and then a water filter bottle. I've done the plain 100 a few times, and that's unsupported, and you get your water from streams. And the first time I did it, I was competitive. I was younger then, and I quit filtering my water. I just started drinking from the streams, and then I got to the end, and I was like, "That's stupid." You got 2 weeks to figure out if you got giardia. And so there are ways to prevent current you from screwing over future you. And having that one bottle that has a filter on it makes it super easy. And if you want to carry more, you fill your second bottle and you dump it into the filter. And yeah, totally second that.
I like
Also,
that.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
and the
I,
best bathroom on the course is right before Camp Bird on the right-hand side. Uh, anyway,
no, the best bathroom on the course is at
It's-
Sherman Aid Station.
Sure.
We know this. This is fact.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is indisputable historical fact in Hard Rock lore that that is the best bathroom on the course. And if you go to only one bathroom on the entire course, you owe it to yourself to visit the bathroom at Sherman Aid Station.
I stand corrected.
Yes, yes. Um, I'm looking to see. Nobody's posted any questions in the chat. Once again, if there's anybody who's joining us that has some questions, if you want to type them into the chat, please do. We're getting close to the end of the questions that were submitted early. I'm looking to see. We've covered most of them. There are a lot of duplicate questions. A lot of people are concerned about altitude. And again, I think, as Matt said, a good advice for that is you can do this. It's just you're probably going to be a little bit slower than you would be lower down. Um, Let me think about any. I'm looking to see, are there any other questions here that
Chris,
I
you were also talking about how to know about snow in the San Juans. I feel like you could, if you're on social media, you could give one of us a shout because we live in Silverton.
yeah.
Also, you could look at Sarah's Instagram or Facebook. She probably will let you know how snow is in Telluride. She's in
Yeah,
the chat.
I'd say follow Sarah's Instagram and Howie Stern.
Yeah, I feel like we'll be out doing things, so people can always ask, like, "Hey, how's the snow in Silverton?" We can let you know if you could get out on any of the trails yet and stuff.
Here's a
Or
here's a question that somebody asked, and I don't I
I just
kind of
volunteered you,
but I
Sarah.
haven't.
Sorry.
Yeah. Someone asked, how strenuous is the 3.5 mile hike if somebody's going to do a pacer exchange at the KT aid station? So you're talking about the hike from South Mineral Campground up to KT. How strenuous is that hike? I've done it a couple of times, I guess. It's not terrible.
No, it's
Then
easy, and I don't even think it's 3.5 miles. Maybe
it doesn't, three and a
maybe
half
it's like
sounds far. Yeah.
a mile and a half.
And I feel like if they're gonna pace you up and over,
Yeah.
they better be able to
Yeah,
do that
they're
little
going to be going through
section.
Putnam Basin. They're not even going to remember the hike up to KT.
Right.
Right.
If they're worried about that. Now, here is one piece of advice I will give because I used to trade off a pacer at KT, and one year the person that paced me into KT from I think from Telluride to KT did not know had not met the rest of my crew. And so my mother, who was crewing me at the time, she dropped off my KT to the finish pacer and waited at the campground for my other pacer to come in. They had not met. She didn't recognize him when he came in. He didn't recognize her. I don't know why there wasn't some coordination. He had actually arranged for somebody else to give him a ride back home. And so my mother hung out and this was before there was good tracking, and there's still not. If you're sitting at South Mineral Campground, you're not going to get a cell signal to be able to track anything. So she's waiting and waiting and waiting, and the pacer never comes down. So she thinks I never came in. So she goes back to Silverton, and she can't figure out what's going on. And the next thing I know, one of my other pacers gets a phone call from Dale Garland wanting to know if he knows anything about where this other pacer ended up because they're trying to figure out if I'm still on the course or what's going on. This is before we weren't using the spot trackers or anything back then. And the last thing that you want is for somebody on your crew to get a phone call from Dale Garland while Hard Rock is still going on. So it all worked out. But I will just say, if you're going to trade out a pacer at KT, make sure that whole exchange is worked out well in advance so that you know who's hiking in, who's hiking out, and who's driving people in different places.
I also will add to that your pacers are not, or that your crew is not allowed to aid you there. It's not an aid station that they can crew at.
Right.
So for me, the first year I ran it this direction, I remember getting there and being like, "Where's my jacket?" And Billy being like, "I can't aid you. Like, I can't crew you here. I'm just doing pacer exchange."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a huge thing, if you think that you're going to be, I mean, even if you don't think, is to have a headlamp in your Chapman bag. It's the last drop bag that you're going to have going this direction. And just having like all your night stuff in there and carrying it with you to the finish.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. Sometimes people get the Chapman like early in the day and they don't think that they're going to need their headlamps or they're like, "Oh, I'm good. I only have 15 more miles to go." But like, you got to grab it there because.
Well, I think Matt's the one that said he starts with two lamps in his bag.
Right.
2 headlamps and spare batteries. I was at Sherman, and there was a guy looking around asking, "Does anybody have a headlamp? Does anybody have a headlamp?" I got 2 in my pack. And I looked at him, I was like, "Dude, you're at Hard Rock. You
Right.
should know this."
Yeah.
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 But yeah, that KT, no aid, just exchange.
And our aid station volunteers are absolutely amazing.
Oh,
They really are. But I will say, occasionally mistakes happen. And one reason I always carry a light in my bag from the beginning. I mean, 3, 2, 1, go. We're leaving. Haven't done a mile yet. There's already a light in my bag from the beginning. And the reason is you never know when you're going to get caught out in something. And I was pacing Hard Rock in 2004. Got my runner and I came in to Sherman. My runner was John DeWalt, who was going for his 10th Hard Rock finish. That was back when he was about to become one of the first people to get a 10th finish. He and Kirk Apt and Uli Cam, I think, got their 10th finish that year. And we got into Sherman, and his bag was not there because they had misheard a number called out over the shortwave radio and thought it was his number that he had dropped. And so they sent his bag on to Silverton with somebody that was heading that way, along with all of the used drop bags. And so he got in, and his flashlight was in that bag that wasn't there for him. And thankfully, the volunteers worked very hard, and they found a light for him to use, which he definitely needed because we didn't get into Cunningham before dark. But I made a note. There's going to be a light in my bag from the beginning forever, just because that's the only bag I can control is the one that's on my.
On the other end of that thing, don't depend on your crew and not put any drop bags out either, because just as much as the drop bag could get misplaced, your crew could get a flat tire going up to Animus Forks or whatnot. So I had crew at most of the aid stations, except I don't never send the crew to Sherman, but just sending the drop bag, and then your crew can get there and get your drop bag and pull it out, but you're not depending on your crew. That's a Carl Meltzer gold standard there. Always.
Well, and it's true because even if you've got the best crew in the world, there's always road construction going on in the summer in the San Juans, and there could be road construction or an accident or any number of things that could keep your crew from getting between Ouray and Telluride, for example. That's an easy drive, but something could happen that would keep your people from getting there. And but your drop bag will be there because it goes out way early.
Yeah, I mean, a way to think about it is, how would I run this if I had nobody out there?
Mhm.
And then put the minimal amount together. I had 3 drop bags, no crew, no pacer. I had one at Animus, one at Ouray, and one at Telluride. And if you start from a base of minimalism, you can always build on top of that. When you have when you have a crew, you have a pacer, you add to that, but you always have that minimalist attitude. Like, what would happen if everything goes wrong? What do I absolutely need to finish this thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Just to make sure we get it on audio, because I think when this goes on the YouTube channel, the chat won't show up there. Brad Bishop in the chat has told us that the climb for a pacer exchange between, going up to KT, it's 2 mile hike, 700 feet of gain. So that is what he has said, which I'm sure he is right about that.
Yeah.
We're coming up. We're right past an hour since we started, and I don't want to keep people too late. Um, but I do want to ask. I've got one thing at the end, but before we get to that, I want to ask each of our panelists that's remaining. Matt, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is important for first-time hard rockers to hear?
Don't forget to stop, sit down, and look around. Look up at turn your light off, look at the stars. Look at the flowers, eat a columbine flower. Enjoy your tour to San Juan. You may or may not have a great race, but you can have a great time.
Good. Amanda, what are your anything from you?
Same thing. Enjoy your time out there. Also, I would like to say a lot of people are probably listening right now that are picking pacers, maybe starting to think about it.
Yeah.
And just make sure you have people that aren't just in it for that they know what they're doing in the mountains.
Good advice. Good
And
advice.
that they're going to carry the proper gear, and that might be out for a 10-mile stretch, might take you a really long time.
Yeah. Billy?
Yeah, I mean, I echo that. I think that's a really important point is that, make sure you're the weaker link than your pacer. Like, don't bring someone along just because they want to do it or whatnot. If they don't have, make sure they have the experience, not only in ultras, but in mountain environments to help you out and help you think straight when you can't. So I think I'd like to just echo that as well.
Dave Koblenz, you've been listening in. Is there anything that you were hoping, advice you thought people should hear that you haven't heard yet?
No matter what qualifier you did, Hard Rock is going to be very, very different. And it's a long, long run. And put something special, a special treat in a drop bag somewhere, just to make your day go a little bit better when you find that cup of that can of Starbucks espresso or something, and it's going to rejuvenate you and reset your whole race. It just takes a small thing to reset it. Very important.
I love it. Well said.
Oh.
I'm
Speaking
Go
of
ahead,
which, a shot of tequila sounds horrible at Kroger's, but it is wonderful. They have a lovely smoky mezcal up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I do believe it was responsible for I nearly made it all the way around Hard Rock without throwing up last year. And I'm pretty sure the mezcal was what kept that.
I would also say, reach out to the veteran people that have run Hard Rock. I feel like people love to talk about it, and people will help you out.
Of course. Of course.
Great. I mean, anyone that has run it, I think will love to talk about it.
So I'm gonna call another audible here, and I hope her camera's not on, but I hope she's willing to talk. Tina Urie's here, and Tina's a 9-time Hard Rock finisher, and this goes along with something Matt was saying about looking around and enjoying it, and what Amanda was saying about making sure you've got great pacers. A few years ago, Tina paced me the last from Chapman to the finish. And when we got to the top of the last climb, she had us do something. Tina, do you remember what we did at the very top of the last climb? She may not be able to talk.
Tina.
We got to the top of the last climb, and Tina was my pacer. I was with Scotty Mills and his pacer. I was going for my 15th Hard Rock. Scotty was going for his 10th, which, and that there was an ultra running cover photo of Scotty that year because celebrating his 10th Hard Rock finish. We got to the top of the last climb, and Tina said it was at night. We weren't going super fast. We were finishing in the dark, and she said, "Everybody, turn off your headlamp just for a second." And we're at the top of the last climb, turned off our headlamps, and we looked up and just saw the most amazing starscape above us. Stars that so many stars I never see where I live. You'll never see where most of you live because you live in cities or you live, where there is light pollution. And to be up there at the top of that, and what was amazing is knowing that, I mean, we've done it, right? All that we have left to do now is go down through the Putnam Aid Station, go down to the river, cross it, newt, shoot, kiss the rock. So we knew we were going to finish. We had plenty of time, and just having that moment to look up at the stars and enjoy that, just the four of us. I'll always appreciate Tina doing that for us, and I hope all of you will have that moment that you can look and appreciate and just relish that accomplishment. It's a big accomplishment getting to Hard Rock. You've done that. You've qualified. You've gotten it lucky to get in through the lottery, and we're super super excited. Thank you very much, Matt, Amanda, Billy. Thank you for being on. Thank you to Tara, who had to go a little bit early. Thank you, Dave, for chiming in. We really appreciate that. Tina says she can't figure out how to unmute. Well, I hope at least you heard, but I'm so glad that you were there for me during that very special moment during that Hard Rock. Thank you, everybody. We'll be doing more of these Zooms. I do not remember off the top of my head what the topic is for the next one, but I know that information went out, and as I love to say on the Hard Talk podcast, Silverton, Colorado is where Hard Rockers belong in the summer. So we'll see you in Silverton. Good night, everybody.
Silverton.
Good night.
Hi, Pat. You, Pat.